But then that made me think about how all of us obviously have different goals, but the same thing that we're all gonna have is we're gonna have challenges and problems.
It's always useful to keep on revisiting your mindset and the way you think about these
Maybe
problems.
we have this goal that we want to achieve, but actually, it's not what people need right now.
In the beginning, it's totally normal to not be confident about these things, and
The
so
question I think that you want to ask yourselves here is what is working to my advantage? Hey guys, we're in episode 10 of Ask Yourself, turning problems into opportunities.
Ask Yourself is a learning discussion where we seek questions to be more intentional of how we understand ourselves.
We are two friends who are trying to make sense of ourselves and the world together. Hi, I'm Nina Guno. I'm a writer who looks for the humanity in the news.
And I'm Elisha Corpus. I'm a consultant who brings humanity into the workplace.
Hey, we made it to episode 10.
No, it's
Who
like a
would have
special
thought?
anniversary or
Yeah.
something.
Actually, what our topic for today is inspired by our last topic, which was episode 9, life goals, expectation versus reality. So, one of the things that made me think about this topic was talking to a friend who listened to our podcast, and she asked me, okay, I do understand where you're going with about charting your own path and really looking at goals that matter to you. But what do I do to reach my goals? And I couldn't answer her straightforwardly. So I was like, maybe next episode we can talk about it. So here's the answer. But then that made me think about how all of us obviously have different goals, but the same thing that we're all gonna have is we're gonna have challenges and
Mm-hmm.
problems. So that's why we are talking about this topic today.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What
Yeah.
is important to you?
For me, it's it's so easy to jump into action mode. Like once you've sort of redefined what is my goal, what do I want to do, you immediately just want to get in and let's start doing it. Like what are the steps that I need to take to get there? But in a way, it we also have to take a step back before jumping in to really condition ourselves. Because like what you said, wherever you go, whatever path you take, challenges and problems will always be a part of our reality. And so before we jump in, we also have to make sure that we at least are aware of how do we handle those problems, or how do we prepare our mindsets in a way to be able to cope with those challenges when you get there, when you are faced with them. And so for me, it's very important that after thinking about our life goals, which is what we did in episode 9, we then try to tackle now how do we start developing that mindset to be able to handle these problems ahead?
Yeah, to your point also, on the flip side, some would want to jump into action right away, but others can also feel paralyzed.
Right.
Like you could think of a goal and you think like, God, that's so impossible to do. How can I even start? Where do I begin? And I think that talking about mindsets and how we can shift our mindsets around our problems or challenges can help us take those first few steps into reaching that goal.
Mm-hmm. And I think an important thing to note here is even though, yes, you know how to handle these problems and you think you have the mindset that can help you through the problems, you never know. You can never predict how great or how urgent that problem will be in the future. And so it's always useful to keep on revisiting your mindset and the way you think about these problems. And so maybe that's another perspective to take here as you listen to the different stories that we will share. Like it's also about trying to always set and reset whatever this could mean for you.
Yeah. Okay. So again, we're going to talk about challenges, how to handle challenges that we face. We're going to go into our personal experiences with that, good and bad ways that we've gone about um, when gone about our problems or challenges. And we're gonna talk about the kind of mindset that we can shift towards when we're facing those problems so that we can make the right actions or the decisions that can help us get to that goal or maybe even get
Mm-hmm.
into an opportunity that you didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So I guess we're gonna get into our stories just to make things more clear instead of being kind of vague about these are the certain steps that we have to do. Okay, so Elisha, do you want to start? What's
Okay,
one life?
so
Maybe think of the life goal and the problem that you saw would just kind of
mm-hmm.
hindering you from getting there.
Yeah, well, like what I said in the last episode, when I decided to come back home, the goal was really to share the things that I have learned and to also experiment and do the things that I've always had in my head, like to make my ideas come to life and find a way to partner with companies and individuals to create this kind of workplace that's more aligned with the societal issues and this kind of workplace where people can really feel like they belong, they can thrive, and people are aware of culture and how to create that kind of desired culture that they want. And so that for me was my life goal. And then I came back home to the Philippines, and now you're faced with the reality of like, where do you even start? And so last year was really that year for me of trying to start things up. But, and as always, in the beginning, it's totally normal to not be confident about these things. And so I don't think I was very confident about what I can do and even the messages that I have. And so I didn't jump yet into like having my own consulting firm, which was the goal eventually. I only did like my own practice and worked with many different people, many different firms. And so that was really good. I would say it was good to get connected and have these different experiences. But there comes the problem because I wasn't doing what I said I would come home for. I didn't feel like I was making my ideas come to life. I didn't feel like I had autonomy over what I want to bring to clients. And the change that I wanted to make, I wasn't doing it. Like, I wasn't even talking about them. And so last year, I think for me, there were times I really felt sad to the point of even mad. and and these were problems that it would make you question the decisions that you have made, or it would make me think like, oh, it would be so much better if I didn't come home, if I just stayed where I was because I was really thriving and happy there. And so yeah, I think for me, if I think about a problem that I'm dealing with, I've dealt with, still dealing with, it would be that.
Okay, like trying to reach that goal and but feeling like you don't have what it takes yet. Is that where
Mhm.
you're at? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, of course. And I
Yeah.
mean, also at our age, where we're also still figuring things out.
I know.
Yeah, that's totally normal. But it feels right, like it's just you, but actually, a lot of people are going through it too. So,
In different ways
mm-hmm.
for different
Yeah,
contexts.
and we're gonna get into it later how you've been dealing with that. So, but
Mhm.
before that, I'll just share my story also about my own life goal. So, I guess ever since I was a kid, I wanted to write for the news. And actually, it's part of why I took a communication arts course when I was in college. The thing is, though, when I got out of college and I was submitting my resumes left and right, for one, it was hard to find job opportunities in the first place for the newspaper. And so I was also looking into working for news websites or even TV
Mhm.
networks, but no one was getting back to me. It was really disheartening. And I remember thinking at the time like, oh gosh, and I mean, just also comparing myself to my peers and
Mm-hmm.
looking at the fact that they were already being hired even if they were younger than me, and I could see it was because they did internships or they were part of the school paper, so they had really more of a portfolio than I did. All I had was just my school projects, like stuff that I wrote for school, and that was
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah, and so I guess at the time I was thinking that's not enough, and I was frustrated at the fact that the media industry is so saturated and that there's so many communication students. Like, why is everyone in this field?
Like, stop going to comms.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so after that, I couldn't get into a writing job right away, so I actually went into teaching first.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what we can talk about now is um, what when we were dealing with those problems, what were our initial emotions and reactions? So you mentioned that you were angry,
Mm-hmm.
sad
Yeah.
and angry. Yeah. So what how did you deal with that?
Oh, hard question. Because, I mean, for me, I always say that I need to try. I want to be a good person. Like, that's what I really want to be. And it's hard when you're not like a naturally patient and kind and thoughtful person. And I just, I think it wasn't just being mad at the situation, but also there were times when I would be mad at myself for feeling that way. Yeah. And because, you have these, you tell yourself that you have to be like better than this, but you end up being just as sad and just as mad as everyone else, and you think like, gosh, like you didn't train that much in life to just be like that. Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't have the answer for how do you deal with it, but I do think that to deal with it, the first thing that you do have to do is recognize that you are feeling that way and you're there in that emotion, and that you label it, and you know that that's where you are.
Yeah. I think it's a natural reaction, I guess. Also, being hard on yourself. I mean, I think both of us can relate to it because we're such like type A perfectionist kind of people. So when we don't get that thing that we've been working hard on, then it feels like such a blow. But
Mhm.
I to that, the next thing that I think what we have to do after you recognize those emotions is you manage those reactions. So I guess looking at something more objectively, um, that something just isn't bad. Maybe just looking at this is a problem right now, and it's not the end of the world. It could be neither bad nor good actually. So like I guess for
Mhm.
me, looking at the
Mhm.
fact that jobs in this media industry are scarce right now, it could be both bad or good, and at uh, uh, at the time, like you just have to make the choice, what you wanna see.
Mhm. Mm. What it sounds like to me is you had to really engage in that thought process of shifting your perspective
Mhm.
about the problem that you had, because your problem was like, why are all these people in comms, like why do you need job in the media? Like, and so it, it sounds like there was some sort of shift there for you.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what happened, and how did you shift that perspective?
Yeah. I think it helped that I thought about what I could control. So I
Mm.
acknowledged that maybe I wasn't as qualified as the other people who were in the field at that moment. Not yet. I think I had to really put in growth mindset that I am not qualified yet, and I had to work on it. So it really made me question about what was in my control and what wasn't. So I think
Mhm.
this could bring us to our first question, which is that what is my perception of my problem?
Mhm.
Because that would make the difference in the actions and decisions that you make next.
Exactly. And what I like about that question is it's not just about what is my problem.
Hmm.
It's really about your interpretation of your problem. Because as we all know, we are humans and we're not always rational. And
Mm-hmm.
so it really, really takes a lot of effort to be able to take a step back and to ask yourself, like, this is the problem that I'm in now, and what is my interpretation of where I am at right now? Which I think could be a more or a richer explanation of the problem that you are in, because you're forcing yourself to look at the whole set
Mm-hmm.
of that problem and the other elements in it.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so after that, after you shift your perspective, um, I guess then you make the choice of what you can do next. And for me, in my case, I knew that I just had to make do with what I had. So I knew that, yeah, I had communication skills, but they could be better honed, and to be more specific to news writing.
Mm.
So I got a job in government where I was in communications, and that gave me the skills to write press releases, which I had never done before actually. So those press releases, of course, they're representing the government agency, but they also gave me insight into what news outlets would be looking for,
Mm.
what is newsworthy, and how to present information to them. And actually, would get published sometimes, but without my name, without my byline, obviously, because it's a press release. But I was like, okay, so that means like I'm getting there. I'm getting to that skill.
Yeah, you're good enough for it
Yeah,
in a way.
that I could be published. That's cool. Yeah. Also, what else did I have? I knew that I could work on my resume and cover letter. So I looked also into. I did research also on how to get what were better ways to get hired, and one of those things was resume, cover letter. Before I didn't submit any cover letter, so I worked on that, and I actually learned from someone that you have a 33% more chance to get hired if you have a cover letter.
Mhm.
So no matter where I was applying, I made one for each, and I think I did get callbacks eventually. Another thing also was looking into the different opportunities. So if since the newspaper jobs were really scarce, there were actually a lot in digital. And
Mm.
so I looked into those also, what qualifications there were for that. And one of the things that I saw was search engine optimization. Knew nothing about it. It's not something that I think was considered important in college. Um, and it since the digital media industry was is still growing, it was something really new to me. And
Mhm.
so I decided that okay, I can't go back in time and study in college and wish that I had an SEO course then. But so I looked for a certificate course online. I I found a way to get it for free, and I took it, and I was able to include that in my LinkedIn, in my
Mm.
resume. So and eventually when I did get that writing job, it came in handy. So
Yeah.
I think for that, after shifting my perspective and looking into what I could control, that was the only time that I could consider what next steps I could make. Because I
Mhm.
think like
Mhm.
getting that dream job seems just like such an overwhelming goal, and you can feel so small and like I don't deserve it. But when you make it into small steps, then it becomes like a bit more attainable. Yeah.
Mhm. It sounds to me like you had to do a lot of accepting your current
Oh
reality,
yeah.
that maybe you don't really have the skills that
Yeah.
some companies might
And
need.
like eating my
And
humble
then,
pie.
yeah.
Like, come on. Like, you're not that great.
Yeah, but in a way, I think it's so tricky what you did, because you could easily fall into that rabbit hole of just thinking you're not good at anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think what it sounds like that you did was you just really took stock of your reality of, this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do, but maybe what can I do now that can get me there so I can do those things that companies want.
Yes. Yeah. That was so important. Acknowledging, again, also growth mindset was really important to that,
Mm.
because I had to think of it in a way that, okay, this doesn't define me. The fact that nobody's calling me back doesn't define me. And there are some things that I can do right now, so that I can learn to become the journalist that these companies need. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What did you do when it came to making do with what you have, or being kind of more creative in terms of tackling or handling your problem?
Yeah, for me, when I started thinking about my problem, I think it was more around I was scared to try things out because I was always worried that people will say, "Well, who are you?" And
Mm.
I mean, until now, I still have that fear that every time I put out a public workshop out there, people will say, "How dare you? Like, you're no one. You didn't even do your professional career here." And so that's really what was stopping me before from doing my own thing. But I started to think about, okay, what do I have and what can I do? And doing virtual learning, giving workshops and webinars online, that's something that since day one of my job before, that was already built into it. Like, I was creating strategy for blended learning and curating and creating content. And so for me, when I took stock of what I do have, that was a huge advantage that I think I could use for me to start up, whatever it is that I wanted to do. And so I think I just had to recognize what I can control. And in that moment, what I can control was maybe putting out these things that I do have skills on and people need. It's not exactly the topics that I want to do already. Like I would rather do maybe cultural transformation topics or diversity and inclusion because these are things that are bigger topics that I love and I'm passionate about. But also, I recognize that at least for this moment, where I can make a bigger difference is doing workshops on working online and leading teams virtually because that's what people need. And so, in a way, it's about recognizing that I can't control what people would want and what they would need.
Yeah.
And I have to just look at what are the skills that I can use and marry it with whatever the situation is calling for.
Yeah. I think this also makes me think about turning problems into opportunities. So maybe we have this goal that we want to achieve, but actually it's not what people need right now. And I think it's great that you
Mm-hmm.
shifted your
Mm-hmm.
perspective into, okay, what do people need right now and how can I help them? And then you were able to apply the skills that you do have and be able to
Yeah.
give those workshops, which is still in line with you being an independent consultant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's where I think the magic happens when you start shifting into looking at how can you make do with what you have because in the beginning I was thinking, well, I don't really enjoy the topics on virtual work. Like, it sounds so mechanical to me. But after a while, I was able to integrate the topics I do love. So now my workshops on virtual work are not just about virtual work. Like, at the foundation of it is culture transformation and leadership and team development, which are topics I'm passionate about. And so I love what you pointed out there because in that shift in my perspective, I was able to still infuse my ultimate goal into the things that I'm doing now.
Yes, exactly. So I think this is the time that we can give and ask yourself questions. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're faced with that problem and you've been able to kind of come to terms with what the realities are and figure out what's in your control, you can think about where can I make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So look at
Yeah.
what you can do at that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
certainly there is something that you can do.
Yeah. It's about the your scope of influence that's realistic for where you are now and what you can control.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think we can get into turning those problems into opportunities. Maybe you can give some explanation of this about redefining opportunities.
For me, when I think about redefining opportunities, it boils down to two things. Like, number one, it could be that you're finding a different path that may be the path that you thought you wanted isn't the right opportunity for you. And so you find a new ground, you find a new path to navigate. Or maybe it could also be realizing that the path you are in now, with all the challenges and the problems that it comes with, maybe that's where you really are supposed to be. And now it's about redefining what are the opportunities that I have here in this current path.
Hmm. Okay. Can you tell us about your own journey and figuring that out?
Or still
Still figuring it
figuring
out. Yeah,
that
yeah,
out.
exactly.
So, for me, I mean, right now, yes, I do have my own consulting firm. Like, I have people who are helping me, who are part of my team, which is so amazing. And I do feel like I am, in a way, doing what I said I wanted to do. But of course, there are times when the problems come up because you're still on your way to that goal. Like, I don't fully have what I said I wanted to have, or I'm not fully where I want to be. And so, for example, there are times when you do still have to maybe work with people you don't necessarily align with, or because you're just starting out, you take on projects that are not what you fully and truly enjoy. And so these are things that are part of the reality of just starting up and getting that goal. So for me, it was really about recognizing that yes, these are challenges and these are problems. And of course, I still get frustrated more than I would wish. But again, for me, redefining opportunities is saying that the path where I am now is what I chose. And in a way, I am kind of lucky that I am facing these problems because these are signals that I'm on my way and I'm doing that goal that I defined for myself.
I was just thinking, yeah, when you were saying that you're still encountering problems while you're getting to your life goal, but you are actually achieving it. I mean, getting there, um, getting to your goal. I was thinking about how even the most like successful CEOs, even when wherever they are, they're still gonna be facing problems. They're still gonna be working with people they don't like. I am pretty sure. Like Bill Gates probably doesn't want to work with certain people.
I wonder who. Can you find out, please?
I don't want to say anything. And I'm pretty sure it still keeps happening, but I think it's also part of it, like choosing your battles.
Exactly. Yes, yes. Yeah, choosing your battles can be really tricky because yes, please do practice growth mindset. Please do practice grit. Like these are we shouldn't just give up, right? I think that's the main message that we all know. If you have a problem in front of you, like try your best to solve it. If there's someone you don't get along with or you don't work well with, then try to solve that so you can collaborate better. And also, I think being able to redefine your opportunities is about choosing which battles you would put your time and energy in. And so, for me, for example, there are people I don't exactly align with in terms of how they do work or, you know, how they approach the things that I'm involved in. But in a way, it's also, I am not as invested in that professional relationship. And I think that if I spend my time trying to fix that, it's not really where I want to make a difference, or it's not the impact that I'd like to make. My effort and my energy would be better spent in other things or other opportunities. And so for me, it's about accepting that, okay, maybe in this part of my life I am frustrated, but there are other opportunities that I feel pretty good and pretty happy about.
Yeah, exactly. So you were saying that redefining opportunities could either be choosing a different path from what you originally wanted, or accepting that this is the path and that I'm in, and these are challenges I have to face.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was kind of the other one, that choosing a
Oh,
different
it's the first
path.
one.
Yeah, the first one. So for me, again, I wanted to work in the newspaper since I was a kid, because I really grew up reading the newspaper. And but then when I got to applying, it wasn't the newspaper anymore. It was all digital. So I had to challenge that fixed mindset about what news is. And even when I learned about digital media, um, I thought it would always be about breaking news and
Mm.
always being on your beat 24/7. But when I got there, the what was being offered to me was actually something more features, something about more light topics, and something where I would have to apply like SEO and social media skills. I remember actually when I was in my one of the interviews, I was asked if I had a Twitter account, and I said no. And then the reporter told me, well, you should get one. So I did get one. I did get a Twitter account, and that eventually helped me also with determining what is newsworthy or what is important to people. So it was really challenging, that fixed mindset of what news should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people now, especially our generation now, and the even Gen Z now, that they're getting into the workplace, I'm sure they're finding that what they were taught by their parents, what they were told by their parents what the jobs would be, is different. So you really have to keep challenging what do you mean about that dream job.
Yeah, what I love about that is it's not about like changing your dream or anything like that. It was really just more of expanding your understanding of what that goal could mean. Like your view of news was just boxed in, but now
Mm-hmm.
it seems like you've even widened that more. Like
Yeah.
news could be many different things and it could mean many different things to people. Like I know, for example, that the stuff you write, it's something that brings us joy when we talk about it because these are like current things that other people are talking about. So yeah, that's what I love about your story, that it's really being able to challenge your fixed mindset can grow your perspective in ways that you cannot imagine.
Yeah, for those who don't know, like I would end up writing about entertainment, about some odd news. And it's funny because some people would, like, some friends would message me and be like, "Oh my god, this is you who wrote this." And I'm like, "Well, that's cool that it entertained you, that it that it made you laugh or made you weirded out." So, I mean, I thought
Mm-hmm.
always news was going to be super serious, but then actually it could be really fun.
Yeah, it
So,
has a different impact.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and another thing I think we have to look into is celebrating those small wins. Um, I know problems can be so overwhelming, and you can think
Mm-hmm.
that all the odds are stacked against you, but actually we can also look into what good things are going for you, and one way to do that is really being grateful, be taking stock of what good things are happening in your life right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we celebrate small wins, it's beyond being grateful, it's also helping us reinforce those good behaviors. Because when we celebrate small wins, we start recognizing, okay, I did really well in this thing and that thing. And then now you can zone in on those areas of opportunity that maybe you can repeat in the future or use to solve other problems that may come up.
Yeah, I that reminds me of how celebrating those small wins can also remind you of what's really important to you. So, for
Right.
example, with me, if I look at feedback about my articles, I think also about how, okay, if this entertained somebody, what can I do to keep doing that? If this wasn't really read by a lot of people, what can I do better about it? And at the end, I think what's really important to me is being a good writer in the sense that readers will be informed and entertained.
Mm.
Like that's actually what the goal really is, not to be like the best writer ever. So, what about you? How does celebrating small wins remind you of not just the good you're doing, but what's really important to you in your
Mm-hmm.
work.
Before, like, I would think about success in my work as looking at how many clients you have, or looking at the amount of contracts that you can nail down and secure for your firm. But also, I started to think about it, and even though that's how other consultants define their success, I realized that I wasn't getting along with a lot of other colleagues because that's not how I define success. I Like what I said last episode, I've already been so lucky enough in life that I've been able to enjoy the things that I have and experience the things that I have. And so I realized that I was trying to be like other people around me when in reality, the way I define success wasn't the same way as they do. And so it wasn't very useful to try to be like them. And now it's still a challenge because obviously you see everyone around you and you can compare and you keep on comparing. But maybe a small win for me is when people would say, like, wow, this is a topic I've never heard about before, or I didn't even know that was possible in an organization, and I'm glad you're bringing that up. When I get comments like that, it reminds me of why I came back home and also why you're doing the things you do. Like, even though it's not perfect, you're not exactly there, you're not influencing the biggest names out there. But in a way, there are people who see what you're trying to do and what you're doing is useful for them. And so I think if I look at success in that way, then yes, I can celebrate that small win. So, kind of like yours, when people tell you that it made them feel something or it made them think about something, then that's when you know that okay, I did something pretty good
Yeah.
here.
So the question I think that you want to ask ourselves here is what is working to my
Mm,
advantage? So this can help you again redefine what opportunities are available to you. Um, of course, you'd want to be able to get to that goal, but if that's not instantly available to you, then you can look at what is working to your advantage, and from there, you can again take steps into getting to that goal, or maybe even celebrating the fact that
mm-hmm,
you're getting there, or maybe you're almost there.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the little things that can help propel you to the next challenge. I think when I think about advantages, it's that. It's what you didn't know you have that could work to your benefit. And it takes recognition to be able to use that to its full advantage.
Yeah. Okay, so I hope that we answered my friend's question, which is that how do I start on working on my goals? So, one way to do that is to turn your problems into opportunities, because we all have
Mhm.
problems and we can all make something out of it.
And they'll never go away.
They won't. But there are ways to deal with them. So,
Mhm.
these questions hopefully will help you out as they've helped us. So, first one is, what is my perception of my problem?
The next question we had was, where can I make a difference?
And the third is, what is working to my advantage?
Yeah. I think when you look at these three questions, they are quite hard to tackle and to think about. But when you turn problems into opportunities, a lot of it is a thought process and a mindset shift. And so if it feels like you're not doing anything to take those opportunities or to get to that life goal, maybe we have to rethink that because thinking about these things and reflecting is doing something.
That's so true. For me personally, since I'm like somebody who overthinks and am working on it, trying to be like mindful and in the present, something that has helped me shift my perspective is look at other people who have come so far or went through these things that seem so impossible. So, for
Mhm.
example, like the civil rights movement in the US and how people fought against slavery. For me, it's like mind boggling that right now, Of course, there's still racism, but we don't have those same laws that really segregated people. And I'm sure at the time it seemed so impossible. So when I think about that and that people were able to overcome those things, it puts me like back on the ground that okay, you
Mm.
can take on your problems if those people were able to do it too.
Hmm.
And maybe you can, if you don't have that inspirational person, I'm sure you can look at your own past and how you handled problems before. I'm sure that you've handled some pretty tough stuff and you still got through it. So look at what you were able to do back then.
Yeah. For me, what's helpful sometimes is to think that to have this problem is a privilege in itself. Like maybe I did some things right in my previous experiences that have led me to this moment where even though it's hard and it's a challenge and gosh, I would rather not have this problem, it's a signal that you're lucky enough to have this problem because you are on your way to whatever that goal is. So maybe that's another shift in mindset that we can think of as we try to turn problems into opportunities. And with that, thank you all so much for taking the time to learn with us. And